5,000 years before Wall Street, before coins, before paper money, before a single gold bar was ever locked in a vault, there was debt, not myth, not legend, debt, written in clay, sealed with a fingerprint, and stored in the back room of a temple in a city called Uruk. Long before anyone imagined a bank with marble columns, the priests of Mesopotamia were already keeping ledgers. They were already charging interest. They were already deciding who owed what, to whom, and what would happen if a farmer couldn't pay. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. The very first cities on Earth may not have been built by kings or soldiers or even by farmers alone. They may have been built by accountants. Welcome back to the Ancient Files. Today we're digging into one of the strangest and most overlooked stories in human history, the birth of banking, thousands of years before money even existed. Before we go further, I want you to sit with one idea because it's going to change how you see the next 20 minutes. We are taught that money came first and debt came after, that people traded coins and eventually someone invented the idea of borrowing. Mesopotamia proves the opposite. Debt came first. Money was invented later, just to keep track of the debt. If that sounds backwards, good. That means you're about to learn something that even most history classes get wrong. And if this is the kind of history that fascinates you, the hidden machinery behind the ancient world, this is exactly what this channel is built for. Hit subscribe now, because what we uncover in the next few minutes about the world's first bankers is going to completely change how you think about civilization itself. Let's go back around 3,500 BCE in the fertile stretch of land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, what we now call southern Iraq. The world's first cities were rising out of the mud. Uruk, Eridu, Lagash. These weren't villages. Uruk alone may have held over 40,000 people at its peak, a number unimaginable anywhere else on Earth at that time. But here's the problem nobody solved yet. How do you run a city of 40,000 strangers? In a small village, everyone knows everyone. If you owe your neighbor 3 sacks of barley, you both remember it. There's no need for a system. But in a city, a real city, with strangers, with specialized workers, with people who've never met, memory isn't enough. You need a record. And so in the temples of Sumer, something remarkable happened. Priests, who were already responsible for managing the temple's grain stores, its herds, its land, and its workers, started keeping track of it all on clay. At first it was just tokens, small clay shapes representing sheep, jars of oil, measures of grain. Then someone realized you could press those tokens into a soft clay envelope, sealing a record of a transaction inside. Then someone realized you didn't even need the tokens anymore. You could just draw symbols on a flat tablet. That system of symbols became cuneiform, the first true writing system in human history. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. The earliest cuneiform tablets we have ever found are not myths, not prayers, not poems. They are receipts. They are I owe us. They are records of grain lent, animals owed, and labor still to be repaid. Writing itself, the foundation of every book, every law, every piece of literature ever produced, was invented to track debt. So who was actually running this system? Not kings, not merchants, priests, the great temples of Sumer, dedicated to gods like Inanna in Uruk or Enki in Eridu, weren't just religious centers. They were the economic engine of the entire city. Temples owned enormous tracts of farmland. They owned herds of cattle and sheep. They employed weavers, brewers, bakers, and farmers, all working temple land in exchange for rations of grain, beer, and oil. But temples didn't just pay people, they also lent. If a farming family had a bad harvest, the temple could advance them grain to survive the season, on the understanding that it would be repaid with more grain after the next harvest. That more grain, that little bit extra paid back on top of what was borrowed, is the earliest recorded form of interest. Sumerian records show interest rates on grain loans commonly running around 33% per year, and silver loans around 20%. These weren't rough estimates. These were calculated, standardized rates, written into contracts, witnessed, and sealed. Think about what that means. 4,000 years before double entry bookkeeping was invented. In Renaissance Italy, Sumerian temple accountants were already running structured lending operations with fixed interest rates, collateral, and repayment schedules. In every meaningful sense, was the world's first bank. The priest at the accounting desk was, functionally, the world's first loan officer. And this wasn't small scale. Archaeologists have recovered tens of thousands of these administrative tablets from sites like Uruk, Girsu, and some listing individual loans of barley to specific named farmers, others tracking massive temple-run operations involving thousands of workers and animals. This is the hidden machinery of the first cities, not conquest, not charisma, bookkeeping. Now here's where it gets even stranger, because so far we've only talked about grain. But grain is heavy, grain rots, and grain is hard to carry around a city. So Mesopotamia needed something else, something that could represent value without the weight. That's coming up in just a moment, and it directly connects to how the very first economic crashes in human history happened, nearly 5,000 years before anyone had ever heard the word recession. Before we get there, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the hidden origins of civilization, now is the perfect moment to hit that subscribe button. The Ancient Files puts out content like this regularly, uncovering the parts of ancient history that never make it into the textbooks. Subscribe now, tap the notification bell, and let's keep going, because the next part of this story involves debt slavery, kings canceling entire economies overnight, and a legal code that's still shaping our world today. Around the middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, Mesopotamians began using silver as a standard measure of value. Not as coins, since coins wouldn't exist for another 2,000 years, but as weighed metal, measured in units called shekels. This was revolutionary. Silver didn't spoil. It didn't need feeding, like livestock. It didn't take up a warehouse, like grain. A merchant could carry the value of an entire harvest in a small pouch. And once silver became the standard, debt became even more powerful and more dangerous. Merchants began lending silver to other merchants to finance trade expeditions, sending caravans out for timber, copper, and precious stones, with the expectation of repayment plus interest once the goods returned. This is, structurally, the same idea behind modern trade financing and even venture investment. Put capital in now, take a cut of the return later. Contracts were incredibly specific. Tablets survive listing the names of both parties, the amount borrowed, the interest rate, the repayment date, and the witnesses present at the signing. Some tablets even include penalty clauses, additional interest charged if the loan wasn't repaid on time. This is not primitive bartering. This is a functioning credit economy with legal enforcement running in cities that many people still imagine as simple farming settlements. But a credit economy built on interest has a dark side, and Mesopotamia discovered it almost immediately. Here is the part of the story that history classes almost never mention. When a Sumerian or Babylonian farmer couldn't repay a loan, the consequences weren't just financial, they were personal. A defaulting debtor could be forced to hand over his fields, his house, or worst of all, his own family. Wives and children were routinely pledged as collateral. If the debt wasn't repaid, they could be taken into servitude by the creditor, sometimes for years, sometimes permanently. Multiply this across an entire kingdom, year after year, bad harvest after bad harvest, and you get a slow-motion catastrophe, wealth concentrating in the hands of a small class of creditors, while more and more ordinary families fell into debt bondage. Sound familiar? It should. This exact pattern, debt spiraling out of control until it threatens the stability of society itself, has repeated throughout history, right up to the financial crises of the modern world. But Mesopotamian rulers had a tool we don't typically use today, the debt jubilee. Kings across Sumer and later Babylon periodically issued royal decrees. In Sumerian, amarji, meaning something close to return to the mother, a symbolic return to an original state of freedom that canceled outstanding debts, freed debt slaves, and returned pledged land to its original owners. The most famous ruler associated with this practice is Hammurabi of Babylon, whose legal code, carved into a massive stone stele around 1754 BCE, remains one of the most important legal documents ever discovered. Hammurabi's code didn't just cancel debts, it regulated them. It set maximum interest rates. It limited how long a person could be held in debt servitude, commonly capped at 3 years. It specified what happened if a lender overcharged a borrower. In other words, nearly 4,000 years ago, a Babylonian king was already grappling with the exact same question modern economists and regulators fight over today. How much debt is too much? And who protects ordinary people when the system breaks? So why does any of this matter now? Because almost everything we consider modern finance has roots stretching back to these clay tablets. Interest-bearing loans, standardized units of value, written contracts, legal limits on lending, even the idea of a central institution, the temple, the palace, managing the flow of credit through an entire economy. The Sumerians didn't just build the first cities, they built the first financial systems to run them. And in a very real sense, those systems, credit, interest, debt, and the crises that debt creates, didn't just support civilization. They were one of the forces that built it in the first place. Every time a farmer borrowed grain to survive a bad season, every time a merchant financed a caravan with borrowed silver, every time a king canceled the debts of an overburdened population to prevent collapse, these were the decisions that kept the first cities functioning, growing, and surviving. The ziggurats and palaces get all the attention in documentaries and museum exhibits, but it was the quiet work of temple accountants, pressing symbols into wet clay, that may have done just as much to build civilization as any king or army. So the next time you think about the ancient world, don't just picture soldiers and pyramids. Picture a scribe in a mud brick temple in Uruk, 5,000 years ago, carefully recording a loan of barley, laying down, without even realizing it, the foundation of every financial system that would follow for the rest of human history. That's the story of the world's first bankers. If this video pulled back a curtain you didn't expect, that's exactly what the Ancient Files is here for. We dig past the myths and the museum plaques to find the real, often stranger truth behind the ancient world. So make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive, and drop a comment below. I want to know, if debt built the first cities, what do you think will be remembered as the force that shapes civilization thousands of years from now? Thanks for watching The Ancient Files. I'll see you in the next one.